So, hey, everybody, welcome back. This will be our final presentation for our super fun, uh, as the slide says, our STC IDL SIG Fall Fright Fest. And we are going to hear from Alex Hales. I first saw Alex's presentation and met Alex at Spectrum of this year. There were a number of students that were making presentations in the Spectrum conference, and I was really impressed with Alex. One of the reasons Alex is a good presenter and a smart guy, but he had taken one of my very favorite topics, which is the power of storytelling in technical communication and making things learnable so that you walk away remembering things. And he had made it academic. He had made it scientific, whereas I was just sort of like, oh, I love stories. And so we're going to hear Alex talk about the scientific and technical side of storytelling. So without further ado, Alex, take it away.
Thank you, Vicky. Appreciate it. So, yeah, I hope that this goes well. I hope that you learned something. I have definitely learned something from making it, and I have definitely learned something from all of you that I've presented today. And so definitely we'll take those to heart, and hopefully you can take something to heart from this as well. But to start, let's see if this will work the way it's supposed to. Yeah, here we go. So my presentation today is called Supercharge Your Documentation with Storytelling Superpowers. And it is by me, Alex Hales. First off, before I go too far into this, the slides background that I have is not made by me. I am not a super designer. It's by Slides Go. It's a website. You can download some templates if you feel like you want to kind of spruce up some things. So just want to put that out there first, and then we'll go through. But basically, for the presentation today, I have a couple things I want to go over. I want to go over a little bit about me, about who I am and what I'm doing right now, and then talk about storytelling, and then kind of reframe it through some articles I've read through my classes at ASU. And then I'm going to kind of go through some storytelling techniques or some technical writing concepts that you may or may not be familiar with through different superheroes or people that have superpowers, and try to relate that to the things that we do. So hopefully this is somewhat fun. There may be an interactive element if you want to join in, but we'll go from there. So one about me. Who am I? My name is Alex. I'm a student. I love reading, writing, learning about different things. I'm common to say, I have been told by a lot of people that I say this pretty often, that if I could stay at school or stay at college and do that for the rest of my life and get paid for it, I would definitely 100%. I love learning, and I love learning from people and seeing what they have to say. And so it's one thing I like to do, but really, I just graduated recently in May of this year with my bachelor's in technical communication. Right now, I am studying at ASU still as a media arts and sciences master's student. I'm trying to integrate this idea of, well, we have technical communication, we have this media arts and sciences. How do we mesh the two? How do we bring those two into alignment? And so trying to figure out where that goes. It's kind of an artsy degree, and so I'm trying to reel it in a little bit, or figure out how I can reel it in. But it's been fun. To be perfectly honest, I've enjoyed the first semester. So hopefully I'll graduate with that degree in May of next year. And then kind of on a side note, something that's allowed me to go to school and kind of be part of technical communication in general, or just kind of some part of my background, is I am a Arizona board certified pharmacy technician. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years, almost now in December, 4 years, to be able to pay my way through school. And so I love it. It's good. There's a lot that I do there, but it's going to be, hopefully that could tie into some things too. And so kind of give me some more knowledge. And I thought that was kind of interesting to put out there. So the other thing about me is, what am I doing right now? Well, I'm constantly trying to evolve my skill set in writing and creation and ideation, trying to learn what I can. Again, still currently studying at ASU. And then I went to a presentation or conference yesterday, and it was about the emerging technologies in XR, or extended reality experiences. And they kind of coined the term story living instead of storytelling, that we want to live in these experiences. We want to live in these stories that we're telling. And I thought that was kind of interesting and a different frame of mind to think about. And so I wanted to kind of pull that in here as well. Right now, I mean, really, as technical communicators, as writers, as someone who loves to communicate this information to other people, we're kind of trying to create stories and experiences that can help develop better relationships with people, or just share what we know. Because that's kind of all we're trying to do, is share that information to one another. And then that just helps build connections with the world around us and with the people that we know. And then kind of about me, my passions. Again, I said this last time, but I'm trying to combine the knowledge of technical communication with the academic writing and my love for the media arts to get people to do something, to get people to act. And then I'm also looking for opportunities to combine these attributes to create meaningful storytelling in the workforce. And then finally, I am also hoping to find creative outlets and share work with others. And then finally here, my contact information. If you'd like to contact me, please do. But I'll move on to the next slide. So really, storytelling reframed. So I read this article, and this article is titled "Teaching and Learning in Storytelling Culture" by Richard Bowman. And he basically, I think Bowman is trying to talk about storytelling in a different frame, right? And so this quote that he pulled from a different author: "The very heart of being an educator is a desire to tell a story by making sensory, emotional connections with students in an empathetic, realistic way." And so as communicators, as in this STL, I believe, STL SIG, we're trying to connect with people at a deeper level. He even says, or Bowman says in the article, that learning is a deeply emotional process, that we have to feel the information, not only just to understand it, but to feel it in order for us to want to do anything with that information. So I think that's very important, and it ties in with the storytelling aspect of when we're trying to communicate those feelings or those ideas to people, we should try to figure out how we can get them to feel that stuff in order to start acting on the information we're trying to share. Some other quotes from the article that Bowman wrote: "Storytelling is universal. Throughout history, the building blocks of all compelling narratives have remained intact: challenge, struggle, and resolution." This being the general storytelling structure. There's a challenge that an interested party has to struggle through in order to resolve that problem. This is very typical of many blockbuster Star Wars, Avengers, all these different type of stories that we hear all the time, even in books. And so this is really, really important idea to consider as we go through the rest of the slides today. Second additional idea that I thought was interesting was that the instructional environments and authentic stories employ a drama to unmask the hidden truth about a challenge. So we need to figure out, well, part of this is that we are trying to identify what stories do to help us unmask something that was previously hidden to us. As part of our teaching, we should try to be eliciting truth. In fact, one of the things that this article talks about is a story about a Dr. Alice Stewart, who researched a question in the 1950s about why so many young children were dying from cancer in Great Britain. And then she kind of looked through the different research and findings from that age and discovered that two 2 out of 1 of the mothers of young cancer victims had prenatal x-rays. Now, fast forward 20 years after contentious debate about does prenatal x-rays really do this or contribute to this problem or not? Should we try to change things? Finally, after a lot of different debates in both Britain and in the United States, the practice of prenatal x-rays were abandoned, or at least to my knowledge from the article, they were abandoned. And then the article does note that members of the organization may not want to know or may not be able to handle the insights into their own culture, in the sense that it's sometimes hard to see and have a vision of what you actually know or what you don't know, if you're just looking at it every day, if you're blind to it. And basically, something that we can take a look at from here is that it would be good and best to have an open area where we can constructively we can not debate, but not sort of debate, but kind of talk through the different ideas and different concepts that people have about anything. And that openness is the beginning, not the end, to confronting and resolving scientific and social challenges that we have, right? And so this is in contrast to the idea of being in a classroom or being in a laboratory or whatever that is very, if you want to say, very constricting, and silence is encouraged. And we don't want that. We want to have that openness and communication, so we can find and discover that hidden truth. And then this next quote that I took a look at was, the compelling stories invite the target audience to examine their beliefs and allow them to act with greater consciousness regarding their everyday behaviors. Again, this idea of, well, if you don't know what you already know, or if you're blind to what you know, then sometimes it's hard to see where things are at. And so trying to generally understand where things are at and try to bring out that positive environment of, hey, let's just go through this and let's talk through all these things. One final thing here is that I think this is one of the best quotes of the paper, is that self-knowledge is the blood of all resonant stories, meaning that it's not enough to just see the information, but we have to feel it, we have to understand it, we have to know it. And as we begin to understand and know it for ourselves, we can then teach and show other people what we're trying to talk about, right? And so understanding what we know and being able to share it, that's the most important part of everything that we do in technical communication, is trying to share our knowledge with other people. Another writing or another book that I had read recently, part of my courses, is an essay by Martin Heidegger, which is a German philosopher, if I believe, around the time of the Holocaust in Germany. And he had wrote something called The Question Concerning Technology. Now, this is a lot of information in this this essay, and I'm not going to go through everything, but the question that kind of came about from this, one of the quotes was kind of talking about how, again, we can technology itself, but the things we do can be a revealing and a concealing at the same time, and understanding where things are at and try to make something that's always hidden become revealed, or bring it to the focus. So something I wanted to add in there, but we'll go on to the next part. So after all this is the bulk of the presentation here, was just going through that essay, or those 2 examples. Now we're going to take a different approach. We're going to go through how we can become super in this industry, or try to take a look at what storytelling techniques we can kind of understand or allude to through different Marvel characters. And hopefully this sparks some interest or some ideas in your head, if you're familiar. If not, hopefully I explain it well enough that you can understand. But first, we're going to take your aim. So we're going to take your aim at what? We're going to take your aim at your target audience. So what do I mean by this? Not that you're actually taking aim, right? But obviously, when an archer takes aim with the bow and arrow at a target, even the slightest breeze can change how the shot is made, right? So you have to change and adjust and direct things as you go. Second, as a technical communication expert, we sometimes have to keep our eye on our target and create further needs. And we have to change and elevate our own understanding based on the feedback that they give us as we go through all those different steps of user testing, UX and UI design, all those things. 3, we do this by the art of persuasion also. Persuasion using pathos, logos, and ethos, or rhetorical devices in our writing to help humanize our data that we're seeing, that we're pulling back into our work, and then trying to relate that to other people to show them that they're not alone in the things that they're experiencing, right? And so 4th and finally, we can think of this as a way to learn about the different perspectives and create something that people will actually care about. Now, in the chat, you can type in some ways or things that you've seen and thought about how you can target your audience better in your work. If you want to, go ahead. If not, that's okay. But that's something to think about. Think about what are other ways that you can think or understand how to target your audience better so that you can share your information to them in a different way. But next, going through the next section, how do we reveal truth? That's kind of a theme that I've been talking about. How do we reveal things to people so they can see things more clearly? Well, for our example, Black Widow is a secret agent of UX UI design. So what do you do as a secret agent? I know the last conference that Vicky was at with me, we were talking about, well, we're detectives. Someone said it, we're detectives, or we're going through and understanding where things are at and trying to piece all the puzzles together. Well, that's really important. We have to gather detail and understand where that detail is found. And then what do we do with that detail? What do we do with that stuff? We act on that data with precision. We try to find where that information is really important and start sharing it with people. Something else that I thought about too is that good design is often invisible. And sometimes we work in the shadows and we're not always seen for the work that we do. And it's important that we try to do the best we can to show our support to those that, if their work is sometimes invisible, we acknowledge that they did the work and we try to share that with other people. 4th, we build interactive elements for our audience. We go through and make sure that our audience is included, and we try to help them feel like they're included as much as possible. And then 5, we also just guide the audience to the end goal in mind, because a lot of what we do as technical communicators is we try to get people to do something at the end of the day. And so we're using our communication to guide them through that process. Now, as we go through, if you want to put down in chat, what are other ways that you have seen, you have thought about or seen how UX and UI design reveals truth? Because sometimes we don't actually think about it. Well, why is UX and UI designed the way that it is? Why is the X on a Windows computer on the right-hand corner, but the close button on a Mac is on the left? Like, why do we have these different ways of doing things? And so try to think about what we could do to elevate our users or help them see things in a different way. 4th, we need to have an understanding and a vision, right? We have to understand the big picture, understanding the vision. I thought Nick Fury was a really good example of this, in that he's a super spy and he has an all-knowing eye. And so what does that mean? Well, if we think about this in documentation management, we have to have a creative vision. We have to see things from a higher perspective. We have to outline, plan, and organize the information effectively. We have to gather those tools and help people create the vision that we see. So we have to lead and guide those that we have on our team or those that are around us, and share the information that we have freely and not gatekeep, and just keep people in the loop, right? Fourth, we identify when something doesn't work and then edit that out of our processes and go through that again and again and again and innovate, 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 innovate. Fifth, when we do something that is working, we build upon it. We encourage it. We praise it. We help those individuals who did something that was good, and we praise them for their work. Six, we inspire, create, and outperform the competition. As a super spy, Nick Fury has to outperform the competition or he loses, and then the whole world is at stake. So we don't want to do that. We don't want him to lose. So we want to win as well. So we should try to do that as well. And then I want you to think about, what are your thoughts on how content management affects our stories, and see if there's a way that we can identify the things that we're doing that we could improve on. What kind of technologies and tools can we use to help manage our information more effectively? So something to think about. Fifth, something that we can gain from another superhuman, if you want to say, or something that we have thought about a lot in the last 6 months. I think it was about 6 months ago that AI kind of came into being almost, or at least it was something that became a lot more popular within the last 6 months. So the powers of artificial intelligence, where are they? Where are we seeing it? Well, we're seeing it in ChatGPT. And I thought Iron Man was a pretty good example of someone who has a lot of gadgets and tools and technologies that kind of have an AI. He even has an AI, Jarvis, that he uses on and off, and who becomes a different superhuman or superpower person. And then he changes Jarvis out with Friday at the end. But that's beside the point. So one of the things I thought would be cool, or not that would be cool, but something that Iron Man does really well, or something that we have to talk about, is ChatGPT, Bing, Microsoft Copilot, Google Copilot, and others. These technologies are not going away. They're here to stay, and so we have to figure out how to use them more effectively. And then AI generative images are going to be mistaken for human art. That's already happening. It's there. Like the deep fakes and all these different things, these technologies that are being created, they're only as good as the users that are using them. We have to figure out how we can best use these images in a responsible way and be responsible providers of this technology to the next generation, because what we do with it, it's going to shape the way the next generation uses it, right? And these machine learning and data processing, it's going to be quick and easy right now, but think 20 years, it's going to be like second nature. We know that like a graphing calculator was standard for students in high school to get, because you need a graphing calculator to do your math homework. Well, we're probably seeing it now, but in like 5-10 years, I think AI is going to be like the graphing calculator. You're going to have it to be able to do homework in school. And we're going to be using it in the workplace all the time, because it's going to be so much faster than we are. Fun fact, if you didn't know, the image of Iron Man is actually not created by a human. It's AI generated. It's AI generated through Canva. And so really quick, because I know we're probably low on time, but I wanted to show you that, yeah, you can just create it through Canva. In this Canvas page, you just go to the very bottom. There's this magic media, and you just type in Iron Man. And then you can select, I want it to be film quality, because film quality, that's harder to do, right? But no, we're going to create it. It's going to take a minute, maybe 30 seconds. It's just generating the image. And I thought this was really cool. One of my friends at school was showing me, this is what we did for our project. And yeah, it just creates this like high quality generated image and it's insane the quality that you can get from that. It's insane. I don't get it. I don't know. It's technology is changing, and the more that we try to use it and the more that we try to understand it, the better we are going to be. I'd rather be at the head of the field than trying to lag behind. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to think. So, how have you already seen artificial intelligence affect your work? I want you to think about that and push that through in the chat or whatever. But think about that, hopefully a little bit. And then lastly, I kind of alluded to this already, but our mighty responsibility. What is our responsibility at the end of the day? Well, we have a lot of responsibility for the things that we say, a lot of the things that we have to do. And so I thought Spider-Man was a pretty good representative of responsibility. I mean, we all know the great line with great power comes great responsibility. We have the power. Technology is our powerful tool, but we have a responsibility to guide it and direct it and help guide the next generation in how to use it. But I wanted to go through a couple things. We have to relate. One of our responsibilities as technical communicators is to relate our documentation to our audience. Again, bringing back this idea of target audience, we have to understand who we're trying to talk to and where we're going with the information. Again, we have to build a relationship with that audience so that they can understand where we're coming from and we can understand where they're coming from. I think that's one of the great things about Spider-Man in general is that he's such a relatable character from high school. Like we all have been in high school at one point in our lives, or at least a type of school. We can understand the situation of what it's like to be a teenager growing up. And so with all of that going on, I think it's wonderful. Wonderful connection. Again, we have to use personal experience as the backbone of our stories. One of the things that Spider-Man is really good is that he's just a normal kid. So he has a lot of different stories and things that happen to him every day through high school. And so I think in our documentation or in our teaching, we should try to build in our own personal experiences with the things that we're trying to teach to help guide and direct these students or the people that we're trying to talk about. And then again, one final thing, with great power comes great responsibility to use it wisely with restraint. One of the things Spider-Man is known for is his strength. He has a lot of power and strength, but he's always using restraint. He can never punch as hard as he can, because if he does, he would crush you. And so we have to do that same thing with what we have with our power. We have to use it wisely with constraint, or with restraint, not constraint. But in conclusion, I wanted to pull this all together. Hopefully you're getting some ideas about storytelling and ideas, and hopefully this is making sense a little bit. But one final thought. Running back to this quote, the very heart of being an educator is a desire to tell a story by making sensory, emotional connections with students in an empathetic, realistic way. But I want to change this just a little bit to relate it to us, right? We are communicators. So the very heart of being a communicator is a desire to tell a story by making sensory, emotional connections with our audience. Because our audience not always is students. It could be a lot of different things. But to do that in an empathetic and realistic way. And so I'll turn this over, if we have time, to some questions. But before I go through the questions, I just want to show you, here's my references. And I have to have this in here because of slides go, just as quick thanks. And then finally, if you want to contact me, this is my contact information. But yeah, if you have questions, let's go through some questions. I did see some chats coming through, so if you want to elaborate on that, that's fine. But any questions or thoughts?
So I'll jump in. I love this presentation, of course, because it even goes back to what you were saying about your academic direction. You seem to be standing at the intersection of the nerdy and the creative. right? You're looking for a way to balance both of those. And a lot of what we're learning in your presentation, what I kind of try to practice. Yes, I'm not a creative writer, I'm a technical writer, and it pays a whole lot better. So I'm going to stay there. But I want to put a lot of empathy into, not so much into the pure content of my writing, but like you were talking about, the aim of my writing. I want to understand who my audience is. I want to understand, because I don't exist as a technical writer so that I can write policy and procedures. I feel like I exist as a technical writer so that, like you were saying, I can transfer knowledge to someone and improve the way that their life is, improve the way that they do their job, reduce risk for my company, make things easier, faster, just unicorns and rainbows. That's my job. And I do, it's new for a lot of the people that I work with to think that deeply about the audience. I do, when I start a project with a group, I say, I just want to go through a little exercise that sometimes they use in marketing, sometimes they use in UX design. We're going to think about the persona, who is going to be consuming what I'm delivering. I have a deliverable, and somebody's going to consider that to be a receivable, right? Who are those people, and what are their goals, and what is their background, and what are their intentions? And they have a hard time dealing with that pure personas, where you kind of like make an actual person and it's got an actual face. But they have no trouble at all when we use the characters out of Charlotte's Web, right? So Wilbur is my sort of newbie reading the instructions, right? But I also have Fern, who's trying to sort of mentor Wilbur. And then I have Sugar, the rat.
I can't remember.
Templeton.
Templeton, thank you. And Templeton is sort of, he knows it, he's done it all, he's not making any changes. And if you make changes, you're going to hear about it in a sarcastic way, right? And then I have Charlotte.
I think I know that guy.
Yeah, we all have a few Templetons in our life. And, so I try, and I usually pull out Templeton when my subject matter experts are trying to over define things, right? If a paragraph will do, Templeton wants the paragraph and then like 1,000 warnings. Important. Do not type da, 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 da. Do not press da, 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 until you press this, and really that'll just scare Wilbur. Wilbur just kind of like needs to know the little bite-sized thing. So I am able to talk to my experts about that kind of stuff if I sort of put it in this friendly, because a lot of times, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the discussion, I'll say, well, let's go back. What does Wilbur need? Right. And that kind of thing. I don't know if you, if that makes any sense, but that's kind of a lot of what I'm getting out of your presentation.
Right. Yeah, well, and there's archetypes, there's story archetypes, there's people have archetypes. And so to be able to relate to people in a different way, to take it outside of the person themselves and just say, hey, instead of it being specifically a person, it just makes it more open, right? Just kind of like I was saying before, it makes it, oh, I'm not trying to target specifically a person, I'm trying to target an idea, an approach. Someone has this problem, or not the problem, but just they have a different way of looking at the world than I do. And so any other questions or thoughts?
I was going to say I really enjoyed, first of all, your own storytelling, within this presentation, and the comparison to superheroes is really interesting. And as someone with the background in marketing, it was really cool to see those kind of like concepts being translated almost to technical communication, because whether it is marketing or tech comm, we're there to solve a problem for someone. And usually that problem at its core is actually emotion, right? It's like we're providing relief, we're providing confidence, and so I think it just makes a lot of sense to hear the idea of personas, the idea of using emotions and sensory aspects in our work. That just makes a lot of sense, and it was really like cool to kind of like see it all click together. Yeah. It's nice to have that translate to tech comm, because I think it'll make our work more effective.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, I know technical communication, or at least to a certain degree, right? Technical communication is a lot focused on the facts and the logos, right? It's not, we try to steer away from trying to get that emotion in. But it's interesting because we'll go to, specifically in UX UI design, we'll go, hey, here's a user test that we have to do and design, right? And that's people saying, oh, I don't like this. I don't understand why this is put here on the screen instead of here. And so it's, again, that's like opinions. That's their thoughts of what's right and what's wrong. And so we're still datatizing and understanding opinions, but we don't talk about that enough. I don't think we don't talk about how information, data points is important, but also the way people see things, understand things. Even though we say all the time, like, we have to target our user, we have to do this for our user, we have to understand the information and share the information for our user, we don't talk about enough where we're bringing that in as part of the approach at the get-go. I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting discussion and field to kind of go into.
Well, and you're talking about self-awareness, I think really hits home, because I will get on a project where my pain point that I talked about at the beginning of the mini conference, my requester knew exactly what they wanted, right? Turns out it was not at all what the organization needed, but they brought me, instead of bringing me, I would like these results, my requester brought me, here's my solution, now just do it. And they have to have a certain amount of humility to be able to even discuss that kind of thing. And sometimes that's within the culture, and sometimes it's not. Just, I've told you what I needed. Now, this should take you, at least in my case, this was supposed to be a sort of like a 4-hour start to finish kind of project that's turned into a whole month. And I could see, that even my boss might be frustrated with me because I want it done right rather than done fast. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. Makes sense. Well, I turn the time over back to you, Vicky, unless anyone has other dying questions. I did see a couple things in the chat, which persona profiles, yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Melissa said, I've consumed clients' content and writing social media posts to learn about their language, communication patterns, which is good. Empathy in the platinum rule, yeah. And then, oh, yes, that image was AI. Yeah, it's insane. I can't believe what AI is doing right now. But that's where I'll leave it, unless anyone else has questions.
But I mean, I think robots and having automation help us. The AI is new, but it's not all, the whole concept is not all that new. In my job, I'm trying to second guess the search engine optimization algorithms. Right. So that my audience can find what, it's not enough for me to write something that will help them. If they can't find it, then might as well, I could have been 8 hours on beach or something like that. And so I'm trying to work within sort of the machine processing and I have to understand sort of, how does the machine think? think's the wrong word, but how do I give the right inputs so that I don't have garbage in, garbage out? I have excellence in and solutions out.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of that robot.